Hello boys and girls, welcome to my channel. I'm For Classic and welcome to BenchART. So for today, what I do bring you in here it is Squirrel with the gun. So the developers provide me the key for this game, and I didn't know too much what to expect about this game, but this game is completely insane and I love it. So first of all, what you should know about it. This game it is using Unreal Engine 5. It's not an easy game to run if you want to push the boundaries of the maximum settings. So first of all, I'm starting with median settings. I'm not really sure if I did show you here, probably not. But I'm starting the game with median settings. Median settings, it does have all the bells and whistles of typical recent game with reflections and stuff like that. But lacks the Unreal Engine 5 Lumen and stuff like that. So let me show you the settings, alright? As you can see, median settings, I'm using upscaling in here. As you can see, resolution is on high, and I'm using TAA, so I'm not, this game doesn't support FSR or anything like it, but it does support TSR, which is the default upscaling solution from Unreal, but it's too demanding, so I decided to just use TAAU and upscale from what it appears to be 75%. I checked the config file of the game and that value changed a lot for some reason. So basically I'm upscaling to nearly 900p or something like that to 1080p. Alright. And by using these settings I was able to get an experience way above 100 frames per second at 1080p, and this is way more demanding than the outside world, which is where you get after you get out of this lab. Alright, so basically it is this. Now let's check immediately to the eye settings with upscale. With upscale and using eye settings which forces lumen, I'm getting some drops lower than 60 frames per second, which is aggravated by the fact that I'm recording. But it was just on this initial sequence because much more forward into the game during the outside environment, which I'm not going to show you in here, it just runs way much better than this. So I'm not really sure what about the rest of the game, but on with this sequence I was able to make the game drop below 60. So I do recommend this setting to play because first of all you are enjoying Lumen and all the AI technology features that Unreal Engine 5 provides. Not all, alright, you're still missing shadow virtualization, you're still missing probably nanite, but you are enjoying Lumen, which is a nice form of global illumination, kind of a software ray tracing solution. So basically, high settings using the same form of upscaling as the median settings, and yet an experience overall above 60 frames per second with some drops here and there. Then I decided to remove any upscaling and use TSR on its native resolution, and the result is exactly a red light in here. So as you can see, high settings, lumen, everything just on high except for anti-aliasing, which is epic, which is TSR, and no upscaling at all. Performance took a nosedive. TSR is incredibly much more demanding than TAA, just that is it is in this game, and disabling any upscaling really damages the performance. So basically I do recommend this setting if you want to target 30 frames per second, but honestly this game requires a lot of precision in the jumps, so it makes it much more easier and smooth to run at 60 frames per second than playing at 30, but that's really up to you to decide. So after that, I decided also to try out the game with maximum settings, and let me tell you that you don't want to do that. I decided to not show you near just for the sake of your eyes, but basically it just runs awful. Okay, that's what I want to say. Then I move on to 1440p territory. And the way I see it, it just plays great. So I started with median, resolution to high, which is upscaled from the 75%, TAA. Performance was great. Alright, so instead of having like 120 frames per second like I had in 1080p, I have now 80 frames per second, 70 somethings. So it's perfectly playable. It's a viable option if you want to play at 60 frames per second and you have a 1440p screen. So go ahead and enjoy the game like this. But obviously I had to try the game also with the eye settings, with upscale, using lumen and all that same stuff that I did use at 1080p. So as you can see, everything on eye, textures on Epic. I did use textures on Epic in all the settings because this game doesn't use too much textures. And as you can see, compared to 1080p, which was having an experience above 60 with drops here and there, right now I'm having more of a 40 frames per second experience, 45. Outside probably it runs at 50s or something like that. But as you can see, 40 to 50 frames per second on this initial lab, which seems to make a decent experience if you want to target a 30 frames per second experience or something above of that. But I mean, that's about it, you know. So when I tried high settings without upscaling, like I'm not going to show you in here, but the experience was already having drops below than 30, so it doesn't make sense to show you here. Then why not? I tried 1440p, I tried 1080p, but what about 4K? Not really sure what's happening with 4K settings in here. I decided to reduce resolution further, so I just use median settings, but instead of using high resolution, I decided to use median. So it's a little bit like using FSR on balance instead of quality. I'm not really sure what I'm upscaling from, but I believe it's 55%. So while using that upscaling, using TAAU to upscale, using the rest of the settings on median, but textures on epic, I was able to fetch an experience above 60 frames per second on this lab, which is pretty good, and it's probably what I would recommend if you have a 4K screen and you don't want to drop your resolution, because this game doesn't allow you to select the resolution in game, so you need to use your resolution toggle inside the game. So this is the settings that I do recommend if you want to play above 60 frames per second. Given that this is the most demanding moment that I did had, this is the way you should play. Then I decide to my last setting. I decide to go to my last setting, which is 4K using eye settings using upscale. This will be a small one. As you can see, 20 frames per second. Basically. I have nothing to say regarding this. It's just already unplayable in the cutscene. And yeah. Awesome, right? Let me show you the graphical settings. As you can see, eye settings, textures on Epic, upscaling. And as you can see, it's not enough. Alright, so given this, my recommended setting for play this game that I have, given that this was just the most demanding part of the game, it is to play at 1080p high settings using upscaling. Alright, this is my recommended settings to go. I will show you my benchmark that I did perform, that I did use for reference. This will be my full benchmark, and it is what it is. Alright, in case you want a proper full 60 frames per second experience, go with 1080p median, use resolution on high, use anti-aliasing on high, use textures on epic. You have your GPU 50% holding on for the work, because you are going to play at 100 frames per 150 frames per second, 120 frames per second. And if you VSync, your GPU will be like smooth sailing. It's just, it doesn't even overheat that much, because it's very weak and easy to run. That's why I do prefer 1080p on high settings, using high resolution, high anti-aliasing and epic textures. It does drop below than 60, yes, in this initial web, but the rest of the game that I did try out, it was just running very well. Above 60, no questions asked. And even if it didn't run that well, I probably prefer to drop one setting or another to median, and kept like a balance between median and high if that was an issue for me. Alright. So I think that's all that I want to talk about Squirrel with gun. Just staying here for the rest of the benchmark for 1080p, and that's about it. So guys, thank you a lot for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Goodbye.